special development plan has been factored into it. We can have Dave Sullivan, who did the letter, come, but he was asked to do his letter based on what OSTA has required, and the traffic lights and the signalization that's going to go on up there and the widening of the road.
So essentially, everything dealing with traffic's already been handled through a state office?
That's correct. And the
Kind of like over our head.
the local traffic authority has had opportunity to comment to the state traffic authority.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, and you're all set for now, right?
For now, yep.
Anyone from the public wishing to ask questions on this application? None? Okay. Again, just for, it's going to be held open until the next meeting because we might want to ask you a couple other questions after we read all this stuff, which will be November 14th. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Moving on. Can we hear number 4, petition zone text change for Apex Realty, please?
Petition for a zone text change on behalf of Apex Realty 242 LLC. Petitioner Anthony J. Fazzone Esquire. Agent applicant is requesting Section 45 Special Development District and subsection 45.2 location of zoning regulations to be changed.
We give them a sec to get all their stuff out of there.
What's this all about?
Yeah.
Mr. Glidden?
Yeah.
For the attorney. For the applicant. What is he wants us to take? Street.
Whenever you're ready, Anthony.
Okay. For the record, my name is Anthony Fazzone. I'm an attorney with law offices here in Cheshire, law firm of Fazzone, Ryan, and Ricciuti, representing the applicant. And the applicant is actually the owner of 242 South Main Street, which is the former funeral home, but now the bridal salon, next to the Hartford Healthcare building. This is an application with respect to the Special Development District. Mr. Glidden handed out an exhibit that I prepared that looks like this, the gray maps. That map shows the what is called the Special Development District in the town of Cheshire. And there's a northern section that goes from the intersection of Highland Avenue and Main Street up to Hinman Street. And then the southern section goes from Academy Road. That's on the eastern side of Route 10. And it goes down opposite Lanyon Drive. The Special Development District was initiated to allow flexibility in the town center area, to allow property owners a greater flexibility in developing their properties. And it currently has a 1.5 acre minimum lot size requirement. This application is a proposal to reduce that to 1/2 acre. The other parts of the exhibit shows those same districts, the northern district and the southern portion of it, from the GIS maps. Unfortunately, the color doesn't color that great, but you can get to see where the different developments are, and I've listed them. There's a list behind the first colored map of the entities that are in the northern area, starting with Stop and Shop, and coming down all the way to the library. And you can see there's a lot of somewhat institutional, large-scale municipal uses in that area. The SDD is actually discussed at length in the current 2016 Cheshire Plan of Conservation and Development. And if you look at that, it's on pages 3 and 4 of the Plan of Conservation and Development. And the Plan of Conservation and Development, in its own words, proposes a more flexible SDD. And I would read a quote that follows the more flexible SDD concept. I quote from the plan. It says, "The plan therefore recommends consideration of amendments to the SDD regulations as necessary to achieve this flexibility. Some consideration may be made to reducing the minimum lot size for SDD projects." So if you were to consider and approve this application or someone else's application to reduce the minimum size requirements of the SDD, it would be in conformity with the Plan of Conservation and Development. One thing that does need to be clear here is that if you were to approve this application, all that does is allow a property owner who has a smaller piece of property to come back before you with an application for a special development project. And that application would require a zone change to the special development district, which is the form of application is attached to the exhibit or is a separate exhibit. That's the application where this commission has the greatest discretion in approving or denying a zone change. In addition, of course, the applicant has to present in site plan, architectural plans, and a set of regulations supporting what they would be proposing in their application. And one of the most specific of those regulations, if you were to look at the SDD regulation, for example, it says that the design and construction of buildings, other structures and facilities, this is what the applicant has to show, by virtue of their location, orientation, texture, materials, landscaping, general bulk and height and other features would be consistent with the town and its existing town center neighbors and would show design merit. So the application for a special development project is fairly rigorous, and the commission has significant discretion in deciding whether or not to grant that application. And I forgot to add, not only with the site plan, there's a zone change map that has to be filed that shows all of the properties within 500 feet so that the commission gets an opportunity to compare what's being proposed with what's in the surrounding area.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why would you want to change all of this when one business should just come before us with their individual question? You're representing one business, you said the building.
I can't come before you without getting this change to the SDD regulation. You can only apply, today you can only apply if you have an acre and a half in the SDD area. So a property owner with less than an acre and a half cannot come before you without this or a similar type of change to the minimum lot size.
They couldn't specifically ask for a change for that
Not
specific
one.
property.
No.
Okay, we've got a couple questions along those lines too. So in the original paperwork that we received as part of our package, there is a third property that's bounded by West Main, Maple, and Georgia Avenue. I guess that's where,
Heinz
Heinz?
is, yes.
so
I
I don't see that in what
I
you just
didn't
gave us.
include that in there because that's one piece of property and I just didn't include it.
Okay, but is that part of this overall for the SDD?
It would apply, yes.
Okay, so
And
that is included. So with that, and I don't know, Michael, this is probably a question for you. If a potential applicant has something in mind for a piece of property that's in one of these special development districts, is this all or nothing that we have to approve this for every special development district, or can we just do it for one?
So the way the request is written would
I
apply.
understand the
It would
request.
it would apply to all three pieces that are in your regulations.
Okay, but could we do it for
You could say,
an individual SDD,
We-
not all three?
the commission could file a separate application and say, listen, we're okay with the reducing the lot size in, let's say, the third piece, the area that's down basically south of Wallingford Road, where kind of the applicant wants to come before you with something.
Okay.
You could do that down the road, but it would have to be a separate application just because this is very specific. It's a locational standard that applies to all three. And we'd run afoul of our legal notice if we were to make that kind of a substantive change.
Okay, and I've just a few more questions, so bear with me.
Yeah, I think I understand your question. I don't think I understood it before. So you're saying, could you, if there are 3 sections to the SDD, these things, could you make this apply in the northern one, or the
Yes.
southern one, or the one opposite Maple? Yeah, I think you could do that. It may be that it may have to be renoticed in a new
Okay.
application file.
I asked that, and I think I know the answer that you're going to give me, but I have to ask this. What are you planning on building and where?
I believe that it would be the property that the applicant owns at the bridal salon.
Okay.
That would be the property that would come before you with an application. And it would most likely have some residential units involved with the commercial, which is the concept of the SDD being a mixed use area with commercial and residential.
I asked that because one of the last sentence that you left out, and Michael, you had this in the write-up, the adjustment is not a recommendation to convert large portions of the commercial base in the center to residential. It is instead meant to encourage investment and economic activity. So when I look at this, I'm thinking these are three big areas. And again, personally, I think I'd rather see, if we have an applicant who plans on doing something down behind the bridal shop, I don't think we should address the other areas. I think that we should be just in something that somebody's interested in. And I think that, for transparency, we should know what applicants are trying to do. Because in the past, people have come before us and say, hey, we want a zone change, but we don't know what we're going to build yet. They could potentially do 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. And then miraculously, 2 weeks later, we get an application with maps and surveys that were done months ago. So, they did know. So I want to avoid anything like that.
From an applicant's point of view for something like this, it's kind of a catch-22. Almost not supposed to present your proposed development, but that, I don't have any problem in explaining what it would be. If you were to look at the, for example, the northern area, the list that I've proposed there, if you go down and if you were to compare that to the map, there's a couple of properties that are just south of the library in the intersection of Highland. There's a nice Victorian house there that's fairly good size. And then there's another piece with an office building. And then there's that kind of rundown property on Highland Avenue next to the St. Bridget's Cemetery. That's a tiny piece of property. But one of those would qualify under the half acre. If they put it together, they were able to put it all together and do something, they still wouldn't have the acre and a half. And the only other parcels in that whole northern section would be those that are already occupied by restaurants. For example, the Victorian house, the Vespucci property, and what's the third restaurant?
Cheshire Pizza.
Cheshire Pizza.
Yeah, you listed that.
Yeah, but that's in a larger plaza.
Gotcha.
That
And in the district that we're sitting in that goes down to the bridal shop, how many properties could be changed? Is it 6? I know in the write-up there was,
So the one that we're sitting in right now,
okay,
so let's say that's 1, this is 2.
Yep.
And then 3.
okay,
This one is just one property.
okay.
The
And-
property just to the north of Town Hall,
Then the one to the south of us?
6.
6. And again, just for transparency, I appreciate you letting us know, what a potential applicant is looking to build, because again, I just have a problem doing it blanket across the town when we don't know what the intent is.
So with respect to the southern district, southern portion of it, I don't know that there are any properties that don't already qualify to be treated as an SDD, because most of the other properties are adjacent to or across the street from an existing SDD, and the regulation allows them to file an application. So, for example, where Cheshire Coffee is, that building, Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, that's in an SDD. So the property immediately south of that with Kevin Heck's law office in it, which is the front piece there is not an acre and a half, but he could apply under the SDD because he's adjacent to an existing SDD.
And is that one of the 6 that you, okay.
Is one of the six also the Calcani building?
That's already part of
That's part of
an
the STD.
An STD.
Is
So-
it?
Yeah, we had the files out on that one.
I don't,
Um,
To Lanyon.
I don't
The
know.
former
should be right there,
Calcani
yeah.
building, yeah.
So technically, that building's for sale. Not speculating whether anything's going to be done. They could split that into half-acre parcels and apply because it's part of the STD, if this were to go through.
Yeah, but there would be, they would be much better off applying under the SDD with their entire parcel of land, which is more than an acre and a half.
Right, but I'm saying if they decided they wanted to do something smaller, if we were to approve this, they could.
Yes.
But again, I don't know. I would just rather see it for the one area. They're separate districts.
Doesn't the regulation actually, doesn't the way the regulation work actually do what you're saying in that you have to first apply to the zone change? And you can say willy-nilly no to the zone change, no, with unbridled discretion.
So Attorney Fazon's correct. I mean, that zone change is the highest level discretion or in zone change or text amendment, an application that you say. So he is correct in saying that when this comes through an STD regulation, application with the zone change, you could just say, nope, doesn't fit here. And you don't have to really, you have to give a reason, but you could say it's not consistent with the plan of conservation development. Goodbye. And that ends the conversation right there. And unlike if it's a special permit, you would have to say, what are the areas out of the criteria for granting a special permit that the applicant failed to demonstrate compliance? So he is
Explain that
correct.
again, Mike, because I don't understand what you're saying, because I thought you said you couldn't apply for a special.
So okay, one is that the SD regulations, as part of the requirements, as Attorney Fazone pointed out, you file a zone change map, which a zone change,
Which they're doing now.
nope.
No.
What they're doing right now is they're trying to change the regulations. So instead of a zone change map, which would be specific to a property or development, they're looking at the regulations themselves to say, we're going to change the qualifying standards to
Well, they
say,
have to ask us.
they have to ask you. We'd like to
They'd
request
like
permission.
to change
We-
this.
we like
and we have to
permission-
give them
Permission to change
Yes,
the
it's not a
qualifying
given.
standards for the STD regulations to lower it from 1.5 acres to half an acre, which is a legislative decision by this body, meaning you have a high level of discretion to say yes or no. When they come in for a STD regulation, a zone change is associated with it, which once again is a legislative decision. So this commission has, can say that this is not in keeping with the regulations, this is not in keeping with the POCD. We're going to say no to that request.
Isn't it
and
just
unlike-
easier to say no now? I'm just being honest here. I'm not in favor of this at all.
I guess, that's really a question for the commission. That's a comment for the commission because, like I said, it is a legislative decision. So, one thing that I would advise you is that you look at your POCD and say, is it consistent with the POCD? And you have two sections where it could be considered consistent. So you would decide, do you really feel that this request is consistent? And if it isn't consistent, you've heard a few concerns saying maybe it's consistent, applying it just to this subsect of the district as a whole and not the entire section of the regulations. And that's something that either the commission could take that up as a text amendment or the applicant could come back with another application, which would be then specific to let's call it from the Wallingford, the third piece, Wallingford Road South portion of the STD.
And I just want to clarify, so I'm not necessarily against this. But again, I want that transparency to know, what the plan is, rather than getting, 2 weeks from now, all of a sudden having that application. So I would just rather see it in the district that they're considering developing in. And then if there's another one for one of the other two districts, handle that at that time. That's just my opinion on it.
Do you remember when we did the STD, why it was an acre and a half and not a half acre? Was there any thought? in that?
I think that when it was done, I think it was primarily done for the watch factory property. And they wanted to see how it would work out and make it, because there aren't a lot of acre and a half properties in all of this area, but I know that the watch factory, once the SDD was done, there was an application immediately for the watch factory as the first SDD. Our buildings, where my office is located, the two brick buildings, we are an SDD. We don't have an acre and a half, but we were able to
Across the
apply because we were adjacent to the watch factory, and that partially the reason why our buildings were brick, to tie in with the brick at the watch factory and the brick with the town hall. And that's the kind of discretion, if say our land was vacant and we came in with an ultra-modern design, you could say, no, we don't like it. We're not going to grant your zone change. And that's the kind of discretion you would have in doing it.
So any of the 6 properties that are in the southern section, I know it wouldn't be a special permit. So if somebody came in and said, I want to put, another Dunkin' Donuts at where Calcani is, what say would we have in that?
Well,
But they're over an acre and a half, so Calcani's not a good example.
Okay, well, fine. They want to split up Calcani. They want half acre. They want to split it up into 5 half acres. If they wanted to put something there, what is our discretion there?
Well, as Attorney Fazone pointed out, as part of the SDD regulations, you'd have a zone change application that come forward to the commission. And there is several other supporting documentation that's required. Part of review is the design. So as he said earlier about incorporating adjacent areas, kind of keeping in character, I don't want to use that term like that, but you would have the ability to say, well, I don't like the design of the exterior of this. It's not really what we've envisioned in this corridor of Route 10. Or it could be, let's just say that let's pretend that the other one wasn't there. It poses a traffic issue, a safety issue, so therefore this is not appropriate in this spot. I mean, stressing that when it comes in with the zone change, you have a very high bar of discretion to apply. Unlike if it was a straight special permit, like I said, we go straight to section 40 and look at the criteria for granting a special permit. If they meet all those sections of the criteria, then really, the discretion is kind of limited.
Gotcha. I'm just asking that, and maybe Dunkin' Donuts isn't a good example. I'm more concerned about that last sentence that I read about giving up the commercial in favor of, all of a sudden all these 6 lots want to build, residential because it's a half acre now.
And I just want to, I share the same sentiment. Is if you knock it down from an acre and a half to half acre, do they need a permit to subdivide that area? I would imagine it needs something, but
Yeah,
they get the zone change. They turn into an SDD. Okay. So let's say it's a 2 acre property. They turn into an SDD. Okay, great. And then they subdivide that property into, 4 half acre lots. Is that 4 brand new SDD lots that they could build something, as long as it fits the SDD guideline?
well, they'd be subject to the SDD guidelines, 1. And then 2, in good planning, you'd want to, if you took that acre and a half and you want to split it down to 5 separate lots there, you'd want to come in as one project to show how it relates to each other. Because, for example, how are you going to handle curb cut management, stormwater management? What's the uses that are next to each other? Because are they uses that cohabitate with each
And
other?
that would be a special permit. to
Well,
apply.
I mean, it's a special permit with the zone change. So once again, like that level of discretion that this commission has, that high bar,
Right.
would come in play.
So they can't subdivide it without zoning or, well,
yeah,
correct.
a subdivision application.
right, which
But-
is
but-
where in the level of discretion, you know?
Well, that's less. The subdivision is less discretion. It's the zone change to SDD is where the discretion is. But if you think about, if someone were to come in and want to do 5 half-acre lots, all of those lots would have to have setbacks. So now you're multiplying the setbacks. The benefit is to not have the property lines of 5 separate lots.
But they all do have large setbacks. All of us got large, all down there.
Well, the
I
SDD
mean,
has
it's
allowed,
smaller and way deep,
the
which
SDD,
is fine, I'm not arguing your point. I'm just saying, it's fine with me.
When did we do the SDD? Do you know any idea when that was?
7, our buildings were built in 86. The watch factory was probably done in the late 70s.
No, I was thinking there was an amendment because it was originally, wasn't it 3 acre? Am I correct in remembering it was 3 acres at one time? It
don't
went down to an acre and a half.
Yeah, maybe.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, like you said, I think the acre and a half may have been,
I think that
selected.
someone had a plan.
I'm just trying to see if we could get to a certain point where they would, why did we keep it at an acre and a half? I mean, especially when you say you can have a half-acre piece right next door to the STD, and you're able to develop that. So we're not really keeping it at an acre and a half. I mean, if Kevin Hecht did his building STD, then you guys wouldn't have an issue. You could do yours.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
so it's
right.
kind of like, what does it matter if it's half acre or not half acre? It's just, we could still
Well,
say no when you come in
yeah.
for the,
I think that's the oddity of it, is that if you have a half acre that's next to an existing
Yeah.
SDD, you can apply. Now, Old Town Commons, where the Berkshire Hathaway and then the 2 antique houses that were restored, that's all part of the SDD. And then recently, didn't we add the piece that they bought on Wallingford Road to their SDD? And so there's that. There's the Watch Factory, there's Old Town Commons, and there's our buildings. I don't think, I didn't realize Calcaney's building was an SDD.
I thought it went all the way down from town hall down.
It goes down
stops at
to
Lanyon Drive.
Lanyon, to the across from Lanyon Drive. If you drew, it
so
includes, Calcaney's piece is the last piece heading south.
the qualifying standard was last amended, it was August 29th, 1986. So that's where.
That's went from 3
one-
acre to 1.5.
Yeah, the 1.5 was established.
Maybe we did that. Maybe our
That was for
property is an
yours.
acre and a half.
Mr. Ted.
So, this is the SDP northern area, south of Union Street and Hadley Road, been listed a number of different properties, Stop and Shop, Waverly. So all those properties together constitute the special development district, all of them together?
I didn't list every property. There's some that are not listed there.
They're all part of, the ones you did list are all part of the same special development district?
The district, but they're not an SDD. None of them are a special development project.
Okay, so for example, then, one of them listed here is, Victorian House, I don't know, is that more than a half acre, an acre?
It's not an acre and a half,
Okay.
but it's,
If we make this changed, then I guess the property owner of the Victorian house would come in and ask for a special development project for that particular piece of property, which right now they could.
That's correct.
And so I guess each of these, if they're less than an acre and a half right now, could come in and want to do something different and be allowed to under the regulation. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just.
No, I understand.
And we have to decide on each one whether that's a good idea for this particular area.
I mean, you can look at, there's some of them there that you know are not gonna look to do that, but.
I don't know. I don't think, you're not, you're a reporter, you're not, no public here.
And I think, Joe, there's no questions, I could, if you think about it.
Yeah, I would think so. I like to look into it.
What do you think about the, where Mr. Talley said just do the one section if you wanted to? I don't know what I feel about that either. I just,
Well, I certainly wouldn't object. I think,
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know, I'd have to think about whether,
I would.
I think the way they changed the statute on zone changes, you could modify it without starting all over again.
I think there'd be a question I prefer to make sure with Jeff D'Onofrio, whether it's considered a substantive change warranting a second legal notice. Because you're right, it's
They did change the
It's
statute.
close, though.
but-
I mean, I would tend to err on the conservative side and say that that would be a substantive change that would require a renotice and a separate
A new
hearing.
application.
Yeah.
all right, I don't think I want to put everyone to the fire and vote on this tonight.
No, I'm-
It doesn't make, we had a motion for it, but with all these questions coming up about it, I don't want to, you might not want it to happen either, so. Anybody else have questions on this? No, so we'll hold it open and see what we're gonna do.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're not listening to Onumfrio, no update. Everyone has in their packet on the Onumfrio thing, right? No update on that. There's nothing to say really about the Onumfrio. You got
Just-
it in the packet, it's the last one on our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, the applicant still has outstanding items with the town engineer. We're going to meet with him. You saw that he had a response. There's a second review from the town engineer. We're going to meet later this week. Hopefully, we'll have some resolution for your next meeting.
Okay, cool.
So,
Can I get a motion to adjourn the public hearing? Moved by
Second.
Mr. Talley, seconded by Mr. Selmont. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, October 24th, 2022. Can I get a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of 10/12/2022?
Motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Moved by Mr. Talley, seconded by Mr. Dawson. How come just a regular meeting? Why not the public hearing?
it's an error on the agenda. I apologize. It should be the public hearing, too.
Okay, so can we modify that to include the public hearing for 10/12/2022?
Yes, so modify my-
Modify Mr. Talley and Mr. Dawson. Okay, any discussion on the minutes, corrections, anything? You were not here. Okay.
I wasn't here either.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. We still have 5. Okay.
The last,
Yeah, we
the
have
last
5.
meeting, right?
The last meeting, you were not here. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Let me ask
Matt
for
still here?
clarification.
You watched it,
So-
so you could still.
I watched it live, read the minutes, so am I allowed to?
You could
You
vote
vote.
on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Then I will not be abstaining.
Any other questions, comments, anything, corrections? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And abstaining, we have Mr. Tedesco and Mr. Strollo. So the motion carries, who's up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The motion carries 6-2. Okay, anything under communications come before us?
Nothing for this evening. And I'll be sending out an email. We have 3 dates potentially for a workshop for marijuana regs. And then
Yep.
Jeff and Sean, I'll email you what was distributed at the last meeting.
All right, so the rest, do we schedule all the public hearings already? We did.
Yeah.
right? 6, 7. Even the new business has been
We-
scheduled?
We advertised for the next meeting. It's another accessory apartment.
All right,
It's the thing to do right now.
so unless anyone else has anything else to come before us. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Talley, seconded by Mr. Dawson. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.